Alright, got two things here. There we go. Can't see a smile on this one. A little bit to find the top. Here's the two things in there. Then we've got whatever's in here. Trying to think if I can remember. I'll be honest, I'm having a little trouble getting through that tape, so... Let's see if I can... Oh! That looks like I did a better job than I thought. We're going to put this scissor away before somebody gets hurt with it. Adding yet more to my collection of Fate stuff. See, I'm just making sure there's nothing here and putting that receipt to the side. Well, let's begin with this, since this is here on the top. Fate Grand Order. Burping. Fate Grand Order. Final Singularity. Grand Temple of Time. Solomon. This is the final battle to take back our future. It's kind of... This is a very different box than they normally do. Interesting. Guess I don't see anything that indicates it's Blu-ray, but it's lengthwise. That's the full picture. Pretty dosh darn cool. Looks like a... Oh, there was a... Oh, there's two booklets here. Animation and art book. Okay, in this art book... Oh, there's a lot of art in it. I saw cool angry anime eyes, or determined anime eyes, or something. There we go. Then we've got this. Yes, I see. So a lot of possibly servants, possibly people. Pretty colors, and I think those discs are in strong enough that I can go full panorama like that. Well, one thing's for certain, regardless of whether or not I think they could have potentially gone off the deep end making as many of these things as they have, it still looks really neat and interesting. Next up we have Shikizakura Complete Collection on Blu-ray. And then back here I see Region A only. Focus, that's English audio. Jesus. Excuse me, I don't know why that came on in the middle of recording. It kind of remind me of someone from a different show. I'm still not processing what I'm even seeing here. I guess that's a planet. Moon? I don't know. 'Tis a mystery. And then last but not least, Nadia, The Secret of Blue Water on Blu-ray, which I'm not sure if I had or not. Because I have that, and I think that's a DVD set, so I think this is my first time getting it on Blu-ray. And this is from G-Kids, landmark series from Hideaki Anno. No, now restored. I see Region A down there for anybody curious. I don't know that I ever watched this show. It's been around for a long time. It's classic. Grab a little booklet. With a lot of stuff that's, you know, or a little bit of stuff that's classic in a lot of the bigger art books, especially from what we saw from there. It's an interesting contrast. Did I... The main thing I was curious about... I'm not seeing anything here that says that it has a dub. I'm assuming the dub's there. Oh well. Here's this week's anime Blu-ray collection update. Alright, a lot of stuff to talk about. Which is surprising because I didn't think it would be that much, but... well, I guess I'll have to just talk about stuff to kind of go into some of the why of that. So of course, with my Friday friend, I watched Demon Slayer, the last 2 episodes of Season 1, which I had seen before. Cute stuff. Actually, if there's any problem with the 4 episodes of Demon Slayer we did watch, it's that there needs to be more Nezuko. No exceptions. But at least a lot of the ladies in the Butterfly Mansion are hardworking troopers that you want to head pat, so that's okay. It's not the same thing, but still okay. But the interesting thing is I watched the first 2 episodes of the train arc. Now, my brief research suggested, and I think y'all had mentioned this before, but I couldn't remember for certain, so I had to research it to make sure. The train arc, there's either you watch the movie or you watch an episode version of it. And because my Friday friend and I aren't going to have the energy to sit down for an entire movie on a Friday night, especially for, you know, eating and doing that thing. Yeah, that's right. That's why that was a little delayed. You know, we're not going to watch it. So we're watching the episodic version. Now, I don't know how it compares exactly to the movie version. It did feel like it cut off at things that could feel like episode cutoffs. I also don't know if it's been edited in order to do that or if they completely reanimated it from scratch. My guess is they didn't reanimate from scratch. They probably chopped it up for TV airing. If that's the case, I do wonder if some of the awkward dialogue is just an English dubbing thing, or if it's a part of, or it's a kind of cause of the editing. It's not all bad, but there are certain parts of it that are definitely like, there's something about this dialogue that isn't quite normal. It's not, it's again, little bits and pieces. Some parts of it kind of feel a little bit out of place, but maybe that's kind of okay, because at the same time, you know, most of our characters kind of represent, or at least 2 of our characters represent a more rural, feudal Japan sort of thing, and so haven't been exposed to the technological wonders of the advancing civilization or whatnot. So train is a complete mystery to them. And so along the same lines, maybe the elements of the series kind of feel a little off because this is a different environment, even though some of the elements of that itself don't necessarily feel like they were intentionally made out of place, so much as it almost felt like somebody else was writing it, so maybe the source was different, but I don't really know. It's really strange because I kind of got used to the feel of the demons up to this point, and one of the demons I've seen has definitely felt different, but the other one's definitely been more interesting. I don't know, only 2 episodes in. Still curious to see how it'll happen, what'll happen. It's definitely doing some interesting, thought-provoking things, at least. Also, with my Friday friend, watched Overlord Season 4, Episode 3. I think Season 4 is continuing with its legacy of... There's anticipation, but it doesn't feel like it's throwing its weight around as much as it really could be or should be or something like that. I don't know. It feels like it's slow, and I don't know if it's slow compared to the other season, because this is my first time watching episode by episode. I mean, compared to this first season, definitely not. At the end of episode 3, season 1, that's when you're like, oh yeah, I'm watching this. And this one, if it was just based on what was happening in season 4, the first 3 episodes probably wouldn't be as enticing. But, you know, I'm definitely curious what season 4 brings us still. It's... yeah. I guess it kind of reminds me of Stranger Things, except I think Stranger Things Season 2 was worse than, compared to Stranger Things Season 1, than Overlord Season 4 is compared to the other seasons. But we still have to hold out. Let's see. Uncle from Another World, Episode 3. I'm definitely liking where the series is continuing to go. It's not doing anything super big, which is fine and great, and I feel like after their episode 3, it's shown that it has enough variety with the characters to be worth continuing to watch out of curiosity's sake. Something they did in episode 3, which was something I was wondering what they were going to do until I saw episode 3, and then I kind of had to guess what they were actually going to do, and then when they actually did it, it turned out to be pretty amusing and entertainingly done. Like, it's... I don't want to talk too much about it, just in case people haven't seen it yet and don't want to be spoiled, but I can say that episode 3's content is one that is usually, I feel, easier to mess up than it is to get right, but I felt like Uncle from Another World got it right. So good job on them. Very entertaining and funny. Let's see. I ended up watching Harem in the Labyrinth of Another World episode 4, because like I said, the main problem with episode 3 is I kind of wanted to know all these things, and it was just distracted by all these other things that normally isekai don't provide. And I understand that for some people that's probably a draw to Harem in the Labyrinth of Another World. In fact, I could swear that after episode 3 I probably saw more Roxanne artwork than maybe I had before, which, you know, would make sense. But episode 4 is what I really wanted to see, which was, they finally went into a labyrinth. And I was worried that they were going to give a little bit of that and then get a little too distracted by other stuff, because they started doing that halfway through. But then that didn't do that, and it progressed better. Basically, episode 4 was interesting, but I can't help but feel like, for the kind of person that likes to see people who have to explore these isekai worlds that they go in, I feel like episode 4 is slow coming, and that's in line with what I've said about Harem in the Labyrinth to Another World up to this point, where it just seems to be lacking in proper direction, I guess. And I feel like that's still not there. I am definitely curious about it, but it's one of those things where, while the party building I feel is kind of great and slow, it's happening very, very slowly. So, you know, take that with you will. There's a lot of things I would say make the anime hit or miss easily for a lot of people, but yeah, it's fine. Then I kind of thought, technically it's past midnight, so it's the Tuesday when I normally upload it. So Monday I had the idea of or was that Sunday night? Maybe it was Monday morning before I went to bed. Anyways, I'm like, you know what? I should go to the homepage of Crunchyroll and see what all their advertising terms of stuff that's out there. Because I very easily miss new shows starting and all that stuff, because I don't really pay attention to a whole lot of that. But obviously, I'm poking around for that content, especially for isekai content, which, you know, is just sort of there. But not everything I was looking at was isekai. So the first one, technically under the definition of anime that I use, I wouldn't classify it as anime. It's called Daily Life of the Immortal Kind of the Immortal King. I had a typo in my notes there. And I think you have to understand that I use a technical definition of anime that just kind of helps note not the highest quality of animation or anything like that. I think some people have used that in the past. I haven't heard anybody use that now, but usually it refers to stuff that's, kind of Japanese in origin. Just as a noteworthy that the cultural stuff, everything that has just been built around anime is definitely something very Japanese. And I think this show kind of shows it. It's not bad, though. It's entertaining. It's a little more silly than maybe you might hope it would be, but it's one of those power trippy sort of shows where it's like, yeah, the main character is kind of a badass, and I really like his stoic nature. But kind of what happens is mostly silly comical to a large degree, just kind of in its execution. It feels like, and this is weird because it's definitely Chinese in origin, because if you listen to the original version with English subtitles and you're used to watching anime, then the audio immediately sounds wrong, but that's just because they're speaking Chinese, and there's nothing wrong with that. And that's part of the reason why I'm going to continue watching this, because I find it amusing and entertaining other than that. And this feeling of things not being quite what I expect, somehow they're not very anime, but at the same time, it definitely looks like, the people who made it are just, they just love anime, and it's all good. I find the main character funny and amusing. I think probably his funniest scene is probably the very beginning of episode 2 when, well, I don't know. Maybe I let y'all find out what that is, but it's hilariously stupid. And I wouldn't say that everything about it is hilariously stupid. This isn't like Psyche K. Was that the name of that anime, or was that... yeah. But it's... feels like it could be a close cousin, maybe. There's definitely a thing there where our main character is overpowered characters suspect, and it isn't this huge joke that nobody ever discovers so much as... I don't know, just funny hijinks happen just because he happens to be there and keeping a low profile. At least as of the first 4 episodes. If they're trying to do anything else with it, they could have been building it up. But at the same time, I only had so much time today, and for some reason I filled a lot of my night with watching anime on the side. So I also watched 3 episodes of Parallel World Pharmacy. For that one, I started watching the English dub. Even though, it's kind of it's not exactly simul-dubbing, but it is dubbing as the episodes come out. But of course it's going to be lagging behind a little bit. And I think there's 5 episodes out. There's only 3 episodes dubbed. But, I started watching because I'm like, 3 episodes is enough to determine if I'm going to like this or not. And so far I'm really liking it. Our main character is also designed to be overpowered. But in this case, it's taking a real approach from the perspective that he was a very gifted physicist from our world. I don't know that they present him that way. And his gifts are probably one that are easily underappreciated just because of how behind the scenes he's done stuff. But he's basically going into a medieval fantasy world with advanced pharmaceutical knowledge in a pharmacy family, and on top of that, it's also established that he has some magic that's actually setting up for some really good feel good and kind of connecting all these things where it's like, oh yes, in a fantasy or medieval world, this would be a problem that we've already solved. And there's always an interesting question of, okay, how do you bridge that gap? Some of them don't, some of them do it haphazardly. I can't even remember some kind of not doing that very perfectly. This one I felt did it really neat and interestingly. And while I can see reasons why it wouldn't work, it did work out. So overall, I'd say good first 3 episodes. And then next up, Black Summoner. This time I decided to go with Japanese with English subtitles because the English dub only goes up to episode 2. I'm like, the other one, let's just set a rule. If I can't get to episode 3 with the dub, then I'll stick with the sub or something like that. Unless I previously watched it dubbed, in which case I'll figure that out later. But so far I've been enjoying it. If there's anything wrong with it, it's that it doesn't feel like there's really a goal. But I think the reason it works slightly better than Harem and the Labyrinth is mostly because it's at least moving forward as if it's trying to set stuff up. Although, let's see. Episode 3 kind of interestingly ends at a similar place to Harem in the Labyrinth, Episode 3, where I don't think they've really established something that I could call an overall motivation for the main character. But at the same time, they've at least not done the thing that Harem in the Labyrinth of Another World has done and immediately resolved their one goal that they were set. And so it's better in that regard. And again, it feels more tolerable because it's advancing through what it's doing a lot faster. Like, it doesn't feel like it's dragging itself because its priorities are the opposite of what you want. Now, I say what you want, and that should probably be more accurate interpreted as what I want, which is I like these little adventure things. So, overall, I'd say it's off to a much better start. It definitely helps when you can, watch the first 3 episodes and do that. But I'm definitely interested to see where it's going to go from episode 4, because I felt like it executed some of this stuff better. Some of it convenient, but kind of touching in its convenience. I'd go into more details, but I like to not spoil if I don't have to. I just try to give my impressions. So, yeah. A lot of anime. Monster Hunter, I don't know that I can name anything particularly notable I've done. My brother and his wife started playing, so if you've ever watched us play before, they're getting into the Master Rank stuff. I don't know if they've been playing any without me, but it's fine. It's whatever. Otherwise, I've just been playing that some with my Twitch friend, trying to keep a little up with Dead by Daylight, just because I need to make sure I make it through the end of this rift, get all the stuff I paid for. I already knew, oh yeah, there's stuff in this rift I definitely want from the premium track, so here's at it. But I'm very slow moving there. I don't always play Dead by Daylight every single night. Sometimes I just don't have the energy, or the focus, or my head hurts, or... Yeah, but I'll spend a night like tonight and play 4 killer games just to get all those killer dailies done. And while I should do more, I'll figure that out. It's all good. It's still fun. I'm looking forward to the next chapter. I should probably start saving up BP just for that. No need to spend it. Not immediately. Good thoughts. Alright. But, let's see. That's right. The other thing I wanted to talk about... Well, let's talk a little bit about another game called Fran Bow. Now, I didn't play that, but my Twitch friend did, and they finished it this past weekend. Overall, it was a pretty fascinating game to watch. It's definitely... I think it's old. It's like 7 years old, so it's not like something strikingly new. Although I think the people that made that have a slightly newer title called Little Misfortune. Although I don't know how much newer. Maybe it's only a year old or something like that. But I haven't seen that one yet, but I've seen Fran Bow, and it's a fascinating game. It kind of... I'm not sure if I can identify what all the feelings I get from watching it would be, but there's some parts of it that sort of reminded me of Pan's Labyrinth. Others that kind of reminded me of Alice in Wonderland. That one's not going to be too surprising to most people because there's a lot of things about it that feel Alice in Wonderland, especially since, like, if you look at Alice in Wonderland from the concept of maybe our main character is on a drug trip or something like that, then that not only explains not only the weird things she says, but also weird ways she's interacting with them. And Fran Bow kind of has some of that things where the weird things she says, what makes them as interesting is the way she interacts with them. And while there are more graphical elements to it, it feels more fascinating than disgusting just because of the way our character interacts with them, which kind of tells you that the creators are kind of one step ahead of your interpretation of that stuff in that scene. So that makes it when you play it or watch it or something like that, you think about it. And some of that thinking about it is what especially gives me a Pan's Labyrinth vibes. Because, there are things that you could compare between them, but I'm not right sure if you can be, other than you think about it too much. And I plan to kind of play through it myself just to kind of get some of the experience myself, maybe. I've at least bought it, downloaded it, and that stuff. But if I don't, it's because I got too many fucking other things to do. And then, let's see. So, interesting game. And then finally, Stranger Things Season 2. So, I think I mentioned before that I really want to rewatch the older seasons of Stranger Things after watching Season 4 to kind of digest them a little bit better. And this was the first 5 episodes of Season 2. And I don't remember what I interviewed or talked about when I last did it, but looking at the stuff here, there are certain things that I connected slightly better because the show does it really roughly. Like a character that they introduced in the first episode, okay, that's the reason why these two characters go to see them in a later episode. Because you don't have anything with which to really care about that character and to connect all the dots properly, I think, first watch through. So if you did, I think you actually did a pretty good job and you're a lot more attentive than myself and possibly the average person, because I did have to explain this to the other people watching. But that's because I knew that character from a later season, so I could track them better. Fun stuff. Otherwise, he just seemed like a background character that was just amusing until he became more relevant. And that's all good. That's not really... I guess that's just an interesting observation about Season 2. But the thing about Season 2 that definitely makes it bad is some of the writing is bad. But it's interesting because it's not like there are only bad moments. There's a lot of good moments in there. And the character acting is actually pretty good. There's scenes in there where I thought about, I'm like, you know, this scene where Nancy is drunk is actually... I feel like it's expertly acted. And none of these characters really felt like they were out of place. They all did a good job. I think, again, the problems lie outside of them, which is good for them. And good for Stranger Things because it means that they finally got their shit together in Season 4. The main thing I've noticed in terms of what makes the Season 2 bad, you know, I gave that high-level thing, but Season 1, when you start Season 1, you're invested in that show in the first 10 minutes. I mean, that stuff happens and you're like, that's a mystery, but oh my god, what happens to that poor kid? I'm totally invested in this now. And Season 2 doesn't have anything like that. And to a certain degree, that means Season 2 is actually bogged down by the problem that it's a sequel to Season 1. Like, Season 1, the way it ends, if that had all been all that Stranger Things gave us, as an anime fan that experiences stuff where it'd be nice to know more, but I'm fine with them just kind of ending at the right moment, Season 1 would have been okay standing on its own. But Season 2 has to start off where Season 1 left off, and so there's a lot of characters are off doing their own things, and we have to get on track with them, but it has nothing to do with the essential problem, or conflict, or mystery of Season 2, per se. It kind of is, but doesn't really feel like it. Everybody's just kind of off doing their own thing, and for some reason, only our main characters are the only ones experiencing these echoes from the first season, so to speak. And yeah, it just doesn't have anything to grab you with. And I think another good problem, or a well-stated problem, is Max is definitely a problem in here. She's not a bad character, but she's a completely noteless character once you get past the first episode. Like, you can kind of tell the first episode did give her something that was kind of a thing, a hook. Something that makes her her. But then after that, it really just turns into, okay, so Max's only impact on the story at this point is she's a girl in the group. And maybe not even quite that. Like, people pointed out that the way they had her character, is she aloof or is she stoic, no nonsense versus goofy? It kind of bounces back and forth without giving us anything to really say, oh yes, that's the kind of character it is. It just kind of feels like that's what they needed her for certain scenes, and that's what she ended up being. So it's miss. And nothing it feels like, again, like the actress did anything wrong or the character was portrayed wrong from what the character was doing. It just felt like
the season wanted this thing but didn't know what it wanted to do it or how it wanted to do it or why it should do it or anything like that. And I think there's a similar problem with Billy. I don't remember what all happens in season 2, and that's why I'm rewatching it, right? But there's a real problem with Billy in that I'm calling this the Gigafrost Grader butt munch theory, which is, when the show sets up this person that's, oh my god, that person's such an asshole, then the more they're disconnected to the story, the worse it is to just have that character in there. And Steve's pretty good because his interactions with Nancy is directly in conflict with the things that have been happening, and basically because it's closely connected to Jonathan Byers and the disappearance of his brother. So there's maybe 1 degree of separation, but it doesn't even feel like 1 degree because it starts bumping into how they're having to deal with stuff as well. Steve, as the asshole of the first season, works out because of that, and maybe that's also why people love him, is because he has to be a part of the main story, and so how he handles that really defines him as a character, because that's trying times. And so maybe that makes no, I'm not going to say that. Season 2 introduces Billy, and so far the relevance to the plot, which is Billy is a motherfucking asshole, is zip nilchna. I think Billy has a closer relationship to Kevin Bacon than he does to the actual story of season 2 at this point. And I don't remember it getting much better than that. Maybe at best it's a distracting side story, but then it's, again, just a distracting side story. We'll find out if I have any different thoughts in that regard. But yeah, it's pretty obvious why people would watch season 2 and go, it's not quite there. Now, it works out because some of the spooky elements of the first season echo well into this one. And I say that because from what I remember season 3, I didn't feel like that echo was as interesting. But I'll have to rewatch season 3 and have a better idea when I watch it with all 4 of these seasons from a higher perspective. But in the end, when you get down to it, the butt munch of Stranger Things season 4 is right there fucking snuggled up next to the main story. So we hate him, but he's relevant to the story, so it doesn't feel like we've just been made to hate a person just to hate a person or something like that. So that's another element I think that just shows season 4 just really matured correctly. Season 2, it's going through these growing pains. Like, the creators didn't expect to create a season after season 1, and they started doing it. And maybe they had plans, but they didn't quite know from a writing perspective how to start season 2 after season 1 had ended. There's certain elements that they, plot threads that they picked back up that I thought were actually kind of dumb. Like, badly executed. But, it's established history. And the truth of the matter is, to a certain degree, you can just write off season 2, worst case, as, sometimes life isn't as interesting and writing isn't as interesting, and sometimes a girl is just a girl, even if they introduced her as a Dig Dug champion. Yeah, we'll have to see if there's more interesting stuff to it. But I digress. Definitely very interesting rewatching season 2 and having these high-level thoughts and reorganizing things. It does make me want Stranger Things. Did I say that right? It makes me want Stranger Things stuff to be more back into Dead by Daylight as well. What would be really cool, Scoops Ahoy Demogorgon. Because if I get that, then there's an entirely new kind of meme I could play, where on the swamp maps there's these boats. But Demogorgon, as a Scoops Ahoy captain, or sailor, or whatever, he's the captain of the boat. And so, his job is to be on the boat and to drive the boat. And, hey, you stowaways, what are you doing on my ship? Get off of here. He chases them off, or he attacks them and he throws them overboard, or something funny like that. I don't know. There's a part of me that thinks it would be funny to do. Whether or not anybody would get it, I don't know. But the funny thing is sometimes to just try to do these funny things and see who all picks up on it. It's really funny when the survivors pick up on what you're doing. When you're like, oh no, I hooked you all once, I'm done hooking y'all. Now, if they want me to hook them again, I will do that unless I've got Bloodborne, and they're going to die if I do that. So, yeah, I'm sorry. I was just thinking of another match where it's like, oh, could I have done something like that? No, that's dangerous. Very, very dangerous. Very dangerous. Whew. Oh well. So that's everything I was going to talk about tonight. Good amount of stuff. Y'all, have a nice week.